You on live now, sir? Okay, boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning into a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have a magnificent guest with us tonight, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than our brother Tremikus Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we are welcoming you to our program tonight, and we look forward to hearing about your book. And we want to discuss. I saw a picture on Facebook of you and Minister Jabril, and I saw some of your posts about him. And we want to know, what is his impact to you, you personally, and then we'll go to the city of Arizona, and then of course the nation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, first of all, brother, thank you for having me on the show. I greatly appreciate it. As I told you off air, I'm a fan. I love the People's Podcast and what you're doing, and may Allah continue to bless you. Brother Jabril, and this is not to sound cliche, in many ways, both spiritually and then physically, was the man who saved my life. I met Brother Jabril several years ago. What my original thing to do with him was to help him and to sell the book, Is It Possible the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is Still Physically Alive? But when I met him, one of the other things that happened is I met his beautiful wife, Dr. Fatina Muhammad, and she became my doctor. I had a condition, brother, with my heart that really had me near death. And it was Dr. Fatina. I remember when she first examined me, looking young, looking healthy, she said, "There's nothing wrong with you." And then she started examining me. And as she started examining me, I mean, one of the worst things you want to hear coming out your doctor's mouth is them saying, whoa, okay. And she discovered what was happening with me and the weakness of my heart. And she became my physician. And when she became my physician, through the natural treatment that she used, QRA, she started the process of healing me. Well, at some point, I'm giving you, hopefully we can get more detailed into the story, but I'm giving you the fast version. At some point, brother, I had to choose between my medicine and my rent. And being a father, a husband, you know who won? My rent won, right? I had to pay my bills. I could not afford the medical treatment. Now, you know, in your driveway, you have an incline. And most people don't notice the incline in their driveway. Brother, I was so ill that I couldn't walk up. The incline in the driveway was too steep for me to walk up. A lot of times I was in bed, struggling and suffering, you know, even going to work, struggling and suffering. I was so ill, but I was a trainer at my job, and I did my job well. So they made special provisions at the job that allowed me to rest in between classes just because of the condition of my health. Okay. Well, one day I got a call from Brother Jabril on the line while I was at the job. And he asked me a question, brother. He said, "Do you want to die?" And of course, my answer was no, sir. He said a few other things to me, but then he asked me for my address and what time I was going to be home. So I'm on the phone with him. And as I'm talking to him, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, he's about to come to the house. I don't know if he's showing up by himself. He's showing up with the minister. So I get on the phone, I call my wife, I say, "Get the house together. Brother Jabril is coming by the house, and I don't know who he's gonna have with him." So I rush home. I get home, and lo and behold, it wasn't Brother Jabril that showed up. He was formerly known as Student Minister Charles, the mosque, minister of the mosque of Mosque number 32, now Brother Student Minister Imam. He showed up with our brother Kenny Muhammad, that some know here in Phoenix. They both showed up together. And they only asked me one question. they asked me how much was my medicine. My medicine at that time, brother, was 600, 700, 800. At one time, I think it got up to $1,000 a month for the medicine, for the medical treatment. And Brother Jabril had sent them to my house. And once I told him the price of the medicine, brother, from that point forward, every time I went to the doctor like clockwork, all I had to do was call Brother Kenny and he would pay for my medicine. Well, that was because of Brother Jabril. That was the kind of love that he had in his heart for his brother. So he saved my life. He saved my life spiritually. Because, Brother Joshua, to be quite frank, at one point in my life in the Nation of Islam, my mind was to leave our nation. My mind was to leave our nation. I had seen enough. And I had decided in my mind, I don't need to come to the mosque. I don't need to participate. I can be a Muslim and not deal with the madness, not deal with the sickness, not deal with some of the things that we do to one another. I was leaving the mosque. And one of my close friends here, brother by the name of Charles, he had lived in Phoenix and he was working with Brother Jabril. And he called me, brother, and he wanted me to come and work with Brother Jabril. And here I am on my way out of the mosque. So I'm thinking to myself, brother, I don't want to come work with Brother Jabril. All the people in the world, you could have called me to work with. Why Brother Jabril? And brother, I lied to you not. I don't mean to embarrass myself, but he was talking to me on the phone and I was making noises. Bloop, 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 bloop. And I said, brother, I can't hear you. I'm underwater. And I can't hear you. And so he got tired of that, brother, and he hung the phone up. And the next day, he called me and he talked to me on the phone for nearly 8 hours to convince me to come to Phoenix and to work with Brother Jabril in selling the Possibility book. He convinced me. And less than 48 hours later, I was on a plane. Brother Jabril had got the ticket and brought me down to Phoenix, and I met him for the first time. And his impact on me, and it was so powerful, brother. And he brought me back first with the knowledge that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still physically alive. And he re-inspired me to be a worker, a helper, to help him, to help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at that time, to spread the message to the believer that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still physically alive, but he had brought me back to spiritual life. So my relationship with Brother Jabril, one, is he helped me come back to spiritual life and come back to service in my nation. Number two, come to physical life. Saved me physically from an illness that was killing me and brought me back through his wife, Dr. Patina, treating me, brought me back to good health. Praise be to Allah.
Oh, praise be to Allah. Powerful. Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone who continues to show love to the People's Podcast. So as we get these exclusive stories from our brother Tremikus Muhammad Phoenix. Brother Nelson Ramos says, Assalamu alaikum salam, sir, beloved family. Sister Miriam Muhammad showing love as well. And thank you all people who are showing love all across the world. Our YouTube family, Brother Kente, Sister Auntie, Brother Musa from New York, our brother from Canada, and people who will just continue to show love all across the country. Okay, let's go. I want to go back to, is it possible that the Most High Elijah Muhammad is physically alive? What did he say to convince you of this?
Well, brother, if you know Brother Jabril was a man that made you to study. I'll give you an example. One day, I came into Phoenix. I called Brother Jabril, let him know that I was in town. I was coming in town to assist him, help him. He had his wife, Dr. Patina, come pick me up, took me over to the home, put me in a guest house. And some don't know this, but Brother Jabril was a percussionist, a serious percussionist. So all of these drums and bongos and all of these percussion instruments were in one corner. In front of me on the wall was a library, wall to wall, from one end to the other, top to bottom, filled with books. And in the middle of the table was a book. This book was about 400 or more pages long, 8 by 11 pages. I'm not talking about small pages, front to back, cover to cover. And he sat me in that room, brother, and he had me to read that book from cover to cover in one sitting. So they brought me there early in the morning. I started reading this book. This book was him defending the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan against the followers of Silas Muhammad. When I say followers, it was the rank and file, it was lieutenants, it was captains, it was secretaries, all the way up to Silas Muhammad himself. Brother Jabril single-handedly handled everybody that they sent at him with the word of truth, with the scriptures. So he had me to study that. I studied for the first part of the day, about 4 o'clock or so. He brought in a bowl of bean soup, some toast, asked me how I was doing. I told him how I was doing. He asked me what I thought about the book. I told him, and he left. And then he came back later that night, and it was nightfall now. And he asked me was I finished with the book. I was finished with the book, and he had his wife take me home. So I think I studied that day more than 8 hours to read a book 400 and some pages long. So when you ask me, how did he help me? It was through study. It was through the study of the Possibility book itself. He had me listen to Savior's Day 1981, which is the lecture where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan first announced that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still physically alive, and really break down and dissect that book. And that's how he helped me. It wasn't necessarily any backdoor secret teachings. It was reading and studying what's in the book right in front of us and stressing the importance of it. You know, it's a point where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is asked, and I'm paraphrasing his words, Brother Jabril would not be happy with me in this terrible paraphrasing I'm getting ready to do, brother. May Allah forgive me. But in essence, the minister was asked, what was the effect on him in knowing that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still physically alive? And would he be able to do what he had done if he didn't have that knowledge? And the minister shared, I think it's page 71 of the Possibility book. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. But the minister said that if he did not come to the realization that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still physically alive, he could not do the work that he's doing. He could not do the work that he's doing. He talked about certain things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had promised him and told him that if he wasn't alive, it didn't make sense. He also talked about reaching a plateau of knowledge, because if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was dead, then the great wisdom, the great teaching, the great fountain of his teachings that the minister and all of us have been drinking from, it would have been finished. I'm paraphrasing the minister's word. That's my terminology, finished. But once he understood the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still physically alive, he could go back to that well stream and start drinking from the great wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then expound more deeply on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as he has done for us. So, you know, it was lessons like that and teachings like that and pointing certain things out. He pointed out the letter where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is answering a particular sister about a dream that she had. And he's talking to her about how the angels would come and take him away, right? So all of these things, Brother Jabril shared at that. Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. You going deep. So praise be to Allah. Thank you
brother.
for
Yes,
who's watching. But it's just I want to stay right there for a minute. The first thing, was there a title to that book that you were reading?
No, it wasn't a title.
It wasn't a title. It's just a book about him defending against Silas Muhammad.
Yes, sir. It's not published. It's not a published book.
It's not published. Okay, yes, sir. Okay, boom. But is that writing available?
Not that I know of, brother. I haven't seen it outside of that city. I haven't seen it anywhere.
You going deep. We appreciate that. Praise be to Allah. And people are showing love all across the country. Brother Kelvin says Jabril with the emojis. People are showing thank you all who are showing love all across the world.
Yeah.
And the second thing I want to say is the letter, because we want to speak as if nobody is familiar with this letter. Could you clear the letter for us? There's a sister, angels taking the messenger away. Could you, stay right there for a moment?
I wish I had the book in front of me, brother. I'm sorry.
But
there's a letter that a sister wrote. It's in the book. It's in the 4th edition. Very important. For those who may have the 3rd or 2nd edition, please make sure you get the latest edition. It's in the final call. There's a letter that a sister wrote to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad about a dream that she had. And I can't remember all of the specifics right now, but what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad shared with her is how he would escape from the death plot that was against him. That Allah has shown him how he would escape. And if Allah hadn't shown him how he would escape, he would have no hope at all. So I would thank you, brother, for stopping me there. Brother Jabril, I would say this to all of us, Brother Minister Jabril. He shared with us how important it is for us to know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive.
Yes,
this
sir.
If we don't know, then either the minister has made a mistake or he's lying. And he has done neither of the two. And I would tell you, brother, at one point, Brother Jabril showed me how to sell the book, because I would sell the book for him. And he told me to look at the reaction of those who I was selling the book to as they read those words. Is it possible the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive? And he wanted to know the reaction of those. There's more to that, but he wanted to know the reaction of those who I came across. How did they react to the book? This is absolute knowledge. I would tell you this. I was speaking to a brother who was in a vending table next to me. And at the time, this was a few years ago, he was a student minister. And I had a dispute with a particular believer about the possibility of Elijah Muhammad being still physically alive. And when that person left, the student minister at whatever mosque it was turned to me and he asked me, well, what difference does it make if we know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive or not? And I showed him the minister's words, the same as what I shared with you. I showed him the minister's word. Brother Jabril, brother, was very serious, very pointed, very clear that this was absolutely, essentially a knowledge that all of us should have and that we should study. Well, I hope that answers your question.
Oh, no, absolutely. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir.
You're taking me back, brother, to my brother, as beautiful as he is, you're taking me back.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. We have so many more questions for you, and thank you all who continue to watch. But Tremikus, I have a quick question. I have a quick commercial break that I had to do for the sponsors of the People's Podcast. Is it possible that while I do the commercial break, that perhaps that letter could be read? Because I really want that on file. If it's possible. If it's not, then it's okay.
No, it's not. I'm at the store now. I don't.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. Because I would say anybody in the comments, please let us know. We're looking for the 4th edition of Is It Possible That the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is physically alive? Thank you all for watching. And we're coming right back to our brother, Tremikus, who's doing a phenomenal job. And then we're going to get into his book and his journey into Islam as well. But we have a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors. And thank you. I mean, I'm a student, so I love studying. So thank you very much, sir.
Camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out to him if you need any of those services. Sister Miriam's ABC I Love Me, children's book and coloring book, and now Spanish book. All 3 available on Amazon.com. Sister Naima's Stay on Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country, right here in the studios of Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Kenneth's Bow Tie Maker Extraordinaire. He'll ship you bow ties anywhere across the nation. Dr. Henry Carter's King Henry Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad's COVID-19 Disinfected Cleaning Services, out of Chicago. Student Minister Sharif Muhammad's book, A Soldier in a Movement of Christ, available on adulsharif.com. And lastly, Brother Joshua Muhammad's book, Cleopatra, as well as No Father, No Excuse, both available on Amazon.
Thank you all very much for every like, share, and subscription, as well as anonymous cash apps that we've been receiving to help the program stay going and moving forward. Exclusively for you, Black Man, by Sister Helen, the Black Man Sacred Book. This is a book of poetry and spoken word, HRSPATROL42@gmail.com. And we have one, also want to make sure that we know Asiatic Minds with Sister Sherry. If you want your children to learn virtually, STEM, she teaches young kings and queens all across the world about STEM and the importance of education and the teachings of Most Hon Elijah Muhammad. Asiatic Minds Online, please sign your child up. And lastly, we have Student Minister Bettine, may Allah be pleased, who is a great musician. They're doing a tribute to him in Macon, Georgia, and we want to make sure that we highlight that one moment. Here we go, and we're coming right back to the Tremikus. Here we go. There we go. Then we come right back to Brother Tremikus. There we go.
Macon, Georgia is a city rich in musical history. From the soulful sounds of Otis Redding III to the funkadelic grooves of Baten, this town has produced some true legends. On August 6th at 6 p.m., we gather at the historic Douglas Theater to pay tribute to these greats of Macon. It will be a special night as the All-Star Band takes the stage. Joining forces, the band will perform songs that were dear to Bateen, Jamal Thomas, Otis Redding III, and Tony Bone Dorsey. Tonight, they come together to create pure musical magic. The guitar effortlessly weaving melodic solos that touch your soul. The heartbeat of the rhythm section driving the groove with infectious energy. The All-Star Band carries on the legacy, echoing with the same raw passion that captivated audiences decades ago. Together, these extraordinary musicians pay homage to Macon's music legends, honoring the legacies that helped put this city on the musical map. This night at the historic Douglas Theater, we celebrate the spirit of Macon and the indelible mark these greats have left on the world of music. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime performance. Get your tickets now and join us for an unforgettable night of music. Macon, Georgia is a city rich in musical history.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you all for watching. Okay, Brother Tremikus. And sir, people are actually sending me the screenshots of the letter. So thank you all very much to our sister. Walaikum salam. Thank you very much. All right. Now, my next question for you is, when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Hon Elijah Muhammad, sir?
I was 16 years old, 1992, in high school. I heard it from a friend. You want the whole story, brother?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I was, my mother hates to hear this, but I was a gang-banger, and I was really out in the streets doing stuff, brother, that she didn't raise me to do. She didn't raise me that way. And I in high school, I met a brother. I was really flunking out of high school, and they told me that if I take shop class, I could get an easy D just for showing up. Well, in the class, I met a young brother by the name of Brother Antoine. He's an FOI, and he used to teach the class on Islam. So as he was teaching, I was listening. Now, brother, you know, when you in the gang world, you got to have a certain mindset. You know, you can't love your people. You can't care about your people. So this brother and what he was teaching, or the teaching of Hon Elijah Muhammad, was having an effect on me. So one day I decided that I'm going to prove that he was just another gangbanger, just like me. And if I pushed him far enough, he would respond in a way that all of us would respond. And now I didn't have no excuse to listen to him no more. He's just another street thug, and none of that love your brother, sister mean anything. So he's talking to me one day in class, and brother, I'm balling up a newspaper while he's talking to me. You know how you can ball up a piece of paper, it becomes really firm. I balled it up as tight as I could. And I jumped up and I said, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about, and slapped him across the face with the paper. Now, brother, this was an FOI. He was a martial artist. He was a championship wrestler, and he was a weightlifter. So I knew he was going to beat me down. But in my mind, I was willing to take the beat down. I was willing to take it to convince myself that I didn't have to listen to him anymore, because he was just a thug just like me. And when I slapped the brother across his face, I jumped back into a fighting position. And the brother looked at me, he held his head down, and all he said was, He got up out of his seat, brother, and walked out of the class. Now, we're in high school. We're in this shop class, so when I smacked him, you can hear the echo throughout the room. So all of the students now are turning, they, ooh, and he walked out. Brother Joshua, when that man walked out of that classroom, I felt so small. I felt so mediocre. I ran out of the classroom behind him. And I said, I'm sorry. I'll do anything you want me to do. I'll go to the mosque with you. And when I said those words, he said, all right, I'll be to pick you up on Wednesday night. And he came and picked me up. I think it was a couple of days later, and he took me to the mosque. I was 16 years old. He took me to the mosque. It was an Easter holiday, and the student minister named Brother Charles, coming down from Detroit, was teaching on Easter, and he was teaching on Master Farad Muhammad. And brother, I was amazed. I had never seen anything like it before. Now, I had brushes and run-ins with Islam, a couple of them. One, the first book I ever read, again, brother, gangbanging, was Message to the Black Man. I was in an incident in high school where one of my cousins, who's a great pastor and preacher in Flint, Michigan right now, he wasn't that then. And the night before, he had stole a brother's coat, robbed the man and stole his coat. And he had his coat on. And when the man showed up at high school, my cousin approached him to start a fight with the man. So when he tried to nudge the brother's shoulder, and he missed. And when he missed, he turned around and said, hey, you know, why you try to push me? And the brother said, look, man, I don't want no trouble. And we all jumped up. We ready to fight. And another brother who was in the gang, he looked at me and said, man, you need to read this. Now, he's another gangbanger. You know, the same thing I'm doing. But he handed me the book, Malcolm X. And I read the book, Malcolm X, all the way up until Malcolm left the nation. Before I could get to that part, someone took the book and threw it away. To this day, I don't know who it was. My second run-in with the teachings of the Hon Elijah Muhammad, there in Flint, the Muslim had a restaurant. Again, one of my cousins, we go into the restaurant to buy a fish hoagie. My cousin standing in front of me, I'm behind him. The brother behind the counter reaches under the counter and he grabs the final call. And he says to my cousin, look, young man, you need to read this. And then he turned to say something to somebody about the order. When he turned, my cousin ran out of the store. So when he turned back, I was standing in front of him. He said, well, where did the other guy go? He said, well, look, you read it. And he handed me the paper. And I love Dr. Martin Luther King. And inside the Final Call newspaper was an article on Dr. Martin Luther King. And it was talking about the radical king. This was in 1992. I read that article. I left. When I came back, I don't know if it was the same person, but just like the Malcolm X book was missing, the Final Call newspaper was missing too.
Mm.
So the brother, when he brought me down, to fast forward again, brought me down to the mosque, I had already had a little base laid for the teaching. And when I heard that Master Farad Muhammad was God, the brothers took me home. I'm 16 years old. Never, read the scripture or Bible, any of those things. But while I'm in the car, the brothers are asking me, do you know God's first name? I said, yeah. What's his name? I said, Master. I said, what's his middle name? Wali. What's his last name? Farad. They pumping me up. Master Farad Muhammad. They're pumping me up all the way home. I get home, Brother Joshua. I walk in the house, pumped up. I walked to my mother, and the first thing I said to my mother, I said, Master Farad Muhammad is God. She looked at me like I was crazy, brother. But I was 16 years old. And that's how I came into the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. There's more to the story, but that's my initial coming into the Nation of Islam.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And what city is this, Brother Tremikus?
Flint, Michigan.
Flint, Michigan. Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My brothers and sisters in Flint, Michigan, mosque number 53, or study group 53.
Great. And you spoke of your parents. Who may I have your parents' names, sir?
Sister Delisa Muhammad and Brother Wesley Muhammad. So after I came into the teaching at 16 years old, the next person to come into the teaching after me was my mother. My mother accepted Islam and became a registered MGT. And then after my mother, my father, some say stepfather, came into the ranks, Brother Wesley Muhammad, and he accepted the teaching. And that was about 30 years ago. So I've been in the nation 31 years, and my parents have been in the nation about 30 years.
All praises due to Allah. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Now in Flint, who were the laborers, like who trained you in Flint, Michigan? Like, what was that like?
So my first mosque or study group coordinator was a brother, may Allah be pleased with him, a brother Mark Muhammad. A beautiful brother, well-studied brother. In fact, about it before I was helping Brother Jabril, he was helping Brother Jabril, and he passed away of cancer. And the brother, both of them from Flint, my best friend, said, well, brother, I got the perfect brother for you. Excuse me. And he called me to come and help in the place of Brother Mark. So he was in front of me in a few ways, but that was Brother Mark Muhammad. And then my student captain's name was Brother Kenny. But because we were a study group, we were under Mosque number 1 Detroit. My first student minister in a mosque, number 1 Detroit, was student minister Rasul Muhammad, son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And my captain, now known as Captain Majid Muhammad, that was my captain, more of a father than a captain. And I thank Allah for him every single day.
Beautiful. All praises due to Allah. And for all those who are watching, you can go back and see the interview that we did with Minister Rasul as well as Captain Majid. Thank you very much. And we've connecting all these dots with the history. Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now, my next question for you is, Mr. Jabril saved your life, the physical, with and shout out to Brother Kenny and Brother Minister Iman for pulling up on you to help make those payments. That's a powerful story. Then you said, is it possible to physically is it physically possible to Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad? You study, you come out of that, boom. After that, what was your relationship like with Mr. Jabril? Were y'all still close, or did you go work somewhere else and y'all worked, or did y'all stay connected over these 30 years? Or 31? Well,
it wasn't 30 years. It was in the last 10 years.
Last 10 years. Okay, yes,
10 years. We were pretty close up until I think about 2015. We were very close. I remember one day we were at the office while I worked closely with him to that time period. I remember one day we were at the office. I was with my best friend, Brother Charles, call him Chucky. And Brother Jabril pointed at the brother Charles and said, is this your friend? I said, yes, sir. He pointed again and said, is this your friend? I said, yes, sir. And then he pointed at himself and he said, I'm your friend too.
Mm.
So I've always felt love from Brother Jabril. And some of you may hear me say, Brother Jabril, and I want you to know I'm not being disrespectful. He never liked to be referred to as Minister Jabril. He never portrayed himself like that. I remember one day I was with him and his wife, and I went to open the door for him. And he took the door, he closed his door, and he went to my door. And he opened up my door, and he motioned for me to get in. And I got in, and he closed the door, and he smiled at me, and then he got in the car.
Mm.
He never had the attitude that he was a big potentate, a big I, and I was a little you. He always just showed love as a brother. I mean, brother, in helping to pay for my meds and all the lessons that he taught and what he shared, it was always, for me, I felt like I respected him and his stature in the Nation of Islam, but it was always like a brother. And I think for me, not anything that he did, we had a little gap between us because he asked me to do something. And I have to admit, I just wasn't strong enough to do it at the time.
Mm.
And I thank Allah, before he transitioned, we had started our correspondence up again. And I was emailing him, and he emailed me back, and I emailed him about some experiences. And the last thing I emailed him about was to ask his help, as our student minister here, Student Minister Halim, is forming a student ministry class. I wanted his help and his input on exactly how that class should go. I didn't get a response, and I know now why. I didn't know at the time. But what I was working to do, Brother Joshua, is rebuild my relationship and my friendship with my brother, brother minister Jabril, working on that. May Allah be pleased with him. We still on the same course, but I think that I seen him a few years ago at a funeral, and brother, he had the same love when I seen him that he always had. And I thought I was on the outs with him. And I wasn't. And one thing, anybody who knows Brother Jabril, brother, if there was a problem, you didn't have to figure it out. He wasn't a man to mince how he felt. You would know. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Well, I want to stay right there with you. And thank you, everyone who continues to like, share, subscribe to the People's Podcast. Shout out to our YouTube family. I'm calling you all by your names that y'all put in the comments. We them boys. Some people who just comment from all over the world. I just thank you all. And shout out to your Cash Apps and everything. We are greatly appreciative of People's Podcast. I wanted to ask you, sir, you said some of your experiences. Could you explain?
Say it one more time.
You said some of your experiences that you reached out to him about some of your experiences. Could you explain the experiences?
Oh, these were sometimes we call them dreams, but Brother Jabril made it clear. You see the Hon Elijah Muhammad. I took it also to mean the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in your quote unquote dream, that these weren't dreams, that these were experiences. I don't want to necessarily share the experience that I had that I shared with him, but I thought it was significant enough to share with him. And I will tell you this: I don't know if he had a chance to do it, but I shared it with him, and he wrote me back and he said, "Brother, I'll share this with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan." So I think it was significant, and we all have these experiences. Some of us deny them and we don't pay attention to them, but if you're having experiences you're seeing Master Farad Muhammad, or you're seeing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or you're seeing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in your dreams, as we call them, you should write that down, right? You should write it down. And you may not know the meaning. I remember I was sharing an experience with Brother Jabril. And I think I can share this one. This one is more personal. It has more to do with me. And I was in my dream, I'm gonna use that term.
Yes, sir.
There was image of the minister on the wall, and like stars. And as I was looking at it, I was asking the minister, well, what do you want from me? And then the minister responded in this dream, I want your heart. And I said, well, whatever you want, sir, you can have. And I shared that with Brother Jabril. Of course, I didn't know what it meant. And I'm sharing that because I want to say this part that he said to me. He said, I don't know either, brother. he said, Allah will make you to know. So some of us, we have certain experiences. We don't know what they mean, but you should write it down, because at some point, Allah may make us to know what it means.
Beautiful.
Yes,
Actually, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, speaking of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, have you ever had the opportunity, when he's constantly, yearly traveling to Phoenix, Arizona, to ever let him know some of your experiences or things of that nature?
Brother, I've never met the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In 31 years. In one setting, at his 60th birthday, they had a receiving line, and we got to shake his hand. It was so quick, brother. It seemed like as soon as I got my hand in the minister's hand, the team was pushing me down. I don't even know what the minister got to say. Assalamu alaikum to. But I never met him. We had a reception at his home once here in Phoenix. And brother, I knew this was gonna be my chance to meet the minister. I had my sons with me. My word is bond to Allah, brother. I had my youngest son, I was holding him. My two oldest sons were in front of me. And as the minister was coming down the line, shaking hands with the believer, when he got to me, they turned him the other way. So he turned around, and my son, who just turned 19 the other day, he said, I remember shaking the minister's hand. I said, I remember too. Because when he shook your hand, I was standing behind him. And of course, as the security surrounded the minister, the brothers surrounded the minister, kind of pushed me back. So I've never met the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, he spoke to the believers this past Thursday. And I was given the honor of the opportunity to help to bring him up to speak. First, me, and then I brought up the student minister, Brother Halim, and then of course, right after us, the minister came to address the believers. But I seen him, I never met him, brother. I never met him.
Yes, sir. We gotta reach out to Minister Abdul Halim and say, come on, let's make this happen now. Brother up here opening up and teaching. We gotta put this in motion.
He tells me all the time, brother, you gonna meet him? I say, yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. And for me, Brother Joshua, it's one thing to meet the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in person. It's another thing for us to try to meet the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in our hearts. In all honesty, brother, and true, I'm happy if I can meet the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in my heart, if I can follow his words and his instructions and do what it is that he's asking us to do, because I'm not the only believer that hasn't met the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The reward in meeting him, I'm sure that's a great reward, but I want to meet him like in the Lord.
Yes, sir.
I want to meet him in Allah. I want to meet him in the work and what he rose us up, taught us to do. So in that sense, I'm working on meeting the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And if it happens in person, brother, I will be happy. But Allah is the best knower, brother. We doing this work.
Beautiful. You
Doing
teaching,
this
Brother
work.
Tremikus. You teaching, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Allah.
And Brother Kelvin says that's real! Exclamation mark. Okay, excellent. Now you had the opportunity of what do you how do you prepare to speak when you get the call? It's a Lean. Muhammad says ministers coming, believers meeting. What do you say? Like, how do you, like when you, like, how do you prepare to speak? Like, how do you prepare to speak?
Praying.
Mm.
You know, brother, I didn't, certain things you don't expect. I didn't expect to be on the rostrum before the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan comes to address the believers in any kind of way. So when the brother shared with me how he wanted things to go, I was nervous. I was scared. I probably said the opening prayer 1,000 times, brother, but I practiced the prayer before I got up.
Yes, sir.
I didn't want to miss a word, brother. I wanted to make sure that I said the right thing, and even if it's only for a few seconds, wanted to make sure I represented the minister in the right spirit, especially at such a sensitive time where we've lost such a great giant in our nation, right? This is a very sensitive and heavy time for us. And, even for me, who has some personal relationship with Brother Jabril. So I did a lot of praying and asking Allah to guide my heart and guide my tongue. And in truth, brother, whether the minister is speaking or not, that's outside of having time to study. Tomorrow, inshallah, I'll deliver the keynote lecture Wednesday night at Muhammad's Mosque number 32.
Go ahead, Brother Tremikus, go ahead.
Yeah, brother. So it's a lot of study, but most of all, it's prayer. Because sometimes, brother, you can prepare your notes, you can have all this stuff, but Allah will take you somewhere else.
That's right.
And I've learned to get out of Allah's way. Some of the time we in Allah's way, Allah's trying to use us.
Yes, sir.
And you have to let Allah use you. A Muslim is one who submits their will to do the will of Allah and bring the spirit of Allah to the believer. The spirit of Brother Tremikus can't do nothing for you. All the books I've read, brother, that don't mean nothing if I can't carry to some degree the spirit of Allah. I heard Brother Nuri say that he learned this prayer from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He said, oh Allah, bless me with your spirit and never take your spirit away from me. That's the spirit you have to come to the believers in, because the believers are not ours. They belong to Allah under the guidance and the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. If we are going to come, I heard Brother Jabril say this, if we're going to come in any spirit, it has to be that spirit that we're sharing the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that we're sharing the spirit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to the believers to give them life. Because we live in a world, brother, and I don't mean to preach, but we do. We live in a world that's constantly draining our spirit, constantly beating us down. The minister called it a beat down, beat up world.
Yes, sir.
And that's what it does to us. And the only thing that rejuvenates our spirit, that gives us life, that lifts us up out of the pain of this world, is the spirit of Allah. It gives us hope. It gives us love. It gives us inspiration. So when I'm tasked with the job of speaking to the believer, that's what I'm looking for. Allah, please, give me your spirit. Show me which way to go. Remove my own arrogance and make me humble enough to accept your spirit, and then make me a channel for your spirit and a tool to be used to uplift your people. So that's my method in preparation, brother, more than any other books or readings that we could study.
Teaching, Brother Tremikus. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. And Brother Prince Gill says, great point, meet him in the work. Brother Andre says, wow, and thank you very much. Also, the sister sent me so much of that letter. I'll say that for another part too, because she was sending me all of these inboxes, and it was deep. So I'll let you unpack that. We'll come back to the letter part to let you, finish dealing with the messenger escaping the death block. But that's the key
Yes,
point, and we got to come back to that. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Let's speak about your book. The title. How can we get it and support you? For those who don't live down the street from Maricopa or maybe Sedona. That's right. Joshua knows some Arizona stuff. Sedona, up the street from the hills and the valleys of Arizona. Or Levine, you know, 2 blocks down from Levine. If we don't live in these areas, how can we support your book, sir?
Well, you know, brother, it's on Amazon. I'll tell the truth, but I really don't want the believers to go to Amazon. I think I told you earlier.
Yes, sir.
I'm part owner of the only Black bookstore in the state of Arizona, Grassroots Bookstore. I'm part owner. And then the Phoenix Local Organizing Committee, the Phoenix LOC that Allah blessed me to chair for the last 8 years, they're part owners. And then, of course, I have my business partner. So if they go to grassrootsbookstore.com, grassrootsbookstore.com, and if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see I've been posting it. If you go to that link and look up the book, Push On Through Struggle, they can click on that link and they can order the book, and we'll ship it right out to you right away so that you can have it. So that's grassrootsbookstore.com. Go to that. And Grassroots. Grassroots is spelled with a Z. Grassrootsbookstore@gmail.com. This is the book. I think you asked me about the book, right?
Correct.
I wrote this book, brother, during my healing process. And you know, brother Joshua, when you don't know if you're going to live or you're going to die, it does some things to you. When you know that you're the breadwinner of your family, and if anything happens to you, you're trying to figure out how your family is going to survive, it does something to your spirit. And for many of us, you know, when we face struggle, we want to give up. And I was at that point. So I decided that I would do like a journal, so that as I went through the struggle, the mentality, the thinking that I had to have, and the experiences that I went through, I would share them, so that not only would it be a therapy for me, but at some point, if someone else was going through struggle, as we all go through struggle, that we could be given tools that we could use to motivate us and inspire us. I mean, I deal with in the book, at one point in my life, I contemplated suicide. Not because I was feeling sorry for myself, but I had an insurance policy that would not pay out if I died from a sickness that I already had, but it would pay out if I died an accidental death. So I talk about in the book that I planned out my suicide so that my family could cash in on the insurance policy. And I talk about my mindset and thinking at that time. Now, suicide is a part of our nation, not just a part of our nation talking about the United States, but suicide is a part of the Nation of Islam. It is a growing number of Black men and women. I think I seen a statistic the other day where suicide had touched children as young as 5 years old. So I talk about this in the book. I talk about my struggles. I talk about my pain. I talk about what Allah blessed me to do to come through it. And I put it in a book, and I shared it out with the believers, the friends, family, the community as a whole. And Allah blessed me with an overwhelming response, Brother Joshua. We've hardly been able to keep the book on the shelf here at the bookstore. I didn't even expect the reaction that we've gotten, but we've gotten a very beautiful reaction. And I think that if the believers, this is a little book, not a big book. I think if the believers and those who are listening, you don't have to be a Muslim. If you read this book, I think it'll give you a different perspective on the struggle and the trials that you face in your life, and what happens if we overcome them, what we will become if we overcome those struggles.
All praises due to Allah. Yes, sir. Tremikus, beautiful. Okay, but Tremikus, we gotta go back. Suicide.
Yes,
we gotta stay right there.
Yes, sir.
My father spoke. He spoke about it publicly, but I interviewed him once where he discussed on the podcast where he discussed him contemplating suicide because of the trial and the stress of what he was going through, and taking care of his family.
Yes, sir.
I can't imagine what it's like to have a wife and children and things of that nature. My struggle is my struggle individually because I'm not married, I don't have children. But as a husband and a father, what advice do you give to others who, carry that weight?
To try and carry the weight yourself is not wise. The supreme and ultimate father of us all is Allah. And brothers, we have to strengthen our relationship with Allah if we're going to carry the weight of our family. In the Quran, it says, keep your duty to Allah, by whom you demand one another your rights.
Yes, sir.
Not keep your duty to your wife, not keep your duty to your children or your friends. Keep your duty to Allah. What is our duty to Allah? To pray, to fast, to build our connection with Allah so that we as men have an unbreakable bond with the creator of the heavens and the earth.
Yes, sir.
Who has carried more weight than the Allah who created himself from nothing in the cold triple darkness of space?
Come on and teach.
He brought himself out of that darkness. So he alone has the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding to carry us through. But if we think we big, bad, and strong enough to do it on our own, we will fail. Brother, I thought I was out of here. And Allah blessed me to change my mind at the last minute. I didn't just think about suicide. I didn't just plan it, brother. I went up to execute the plan up to the last minute. In Allah, I was going to drown myself. In Allah, I believe it was Allah. I could be wrong. Showed me the next morning, my wife seeing her husband. And I imagine in my mind her jumping in that water, trying to save my life, and her not knowing how to swim, drowning. And I thought to myself, well, not only if I go, if she goes too, then my children are without a mother and a father. And I walked out of that swimming pool, brother. Wish I could share more of the story, but I walked out of that swimming pool and I went back to my bed and I asked Allah, give me a sign. Help me to see a way through this. And Allah didn't give me an answer right away, but a few days later, my wife came in the room with my 12-year-old son. And my 12-year-old son had an idea on how to raise the money to start the process for me to get my medication that I couldn't afford. So here I am in my own mind thinking the solution, brothers, was to kill myself. But then Allah, knowing a better solution, sends the solution through a child. I'm looking, brother, when I prayed, Brother Joshua, I looked out the window for a sign. I looked throughout the room to see if I could get a sign. Allah showed me something. Allah didn't show it to me, but he showed it to my son and my wife, and they helped me. And listen, the Quran says, Allah said, pray to me, and I will answer you. Brother Jabril was teaching once, and he said, saying a prayer to Allah is like turning on a water faucet. If you want a glass of water, turn it on. If you want guidance on how to get through the pain and struggle of taking care of your family, taking care of your wife, taking care of your children, being a good father, being a good husband, don't look, brother, in no other place but Allah, and build that relationship and pray to Allah, and then be patient and wait for him. Seek my assistance through patience and prayer.
Right.
Wait for him to give you the answer and the guidance on how to be a good father and a good husband to your family. Don't lose hope. Don't think because you can't find the answer. Don't think there is no answer. Know that Allah will answer you. He answers the prayer of the believer. Seek him out. Read your Quran, study, pray, fast, do everything you can. If you know you got a shortfall, a shortcoming, then work on that so that we can get closer to Allah and watch Allah guide us out of a dark place. From that point, Brother Joshua, me contemplating my death, if I were to die, there would be no Phoenix Local Organizing Committee. I don't believe that. There would be no gardens. There would be no bookstore. There would be no work that Allah is blessing me to do in the name of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because I would have checked out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You don't know what Allah has intended for you, brother. That struggle is to make you into something. And if we can learn how to depend on Allah in the most difficult moments of our lives, then Allah can trust us now with the heavy weight of the mission of the saving of our people, the resurrecting of our people, of the guidance and the teaching of our people, because we're not born in this world to just eat, sleep, and die. We're born with a divine purpose. But in order to reach that divine purpose, we got to overcome some struggle in our life by connecting with the Creator. Then He can use us. So trust Allah. Put your absolute trust in Allah. I don't give a damn what happened. Say, I trust you, Allah. I know you're with me, Allah. And then move with that spirit and move with that kind of energy and watch Allah bless you. And not only will you be successful, but you will be able to tell the story to those around you of how Allah saved you. How He saved you. Praise be to Allah. Allah is still saving people, Brother Josh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're teaching, Brother Tremikus. You're teaching. And I'm sure we all needed this tonight. And I can't wait to put this on YouTube as well. Thank you, everyone, showing love all across the world. Brother Nelson Ramos, our brother, says our praises due to our Savior, Master Prophet Muhammad. Come on and teach. And your wife, the incredible artist, Sister Arian Nicole, says that's right with the love emoji. Beautiful.
Go ahead, baby. That's right. Praise be to Allah. I love you.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I wanted to go back to that. You know, you brought us up, but I want to go back there because I just want to know, you know, man to man, brother to brother, why the route of drowning?
I was one day I was swimming with my children, and due to my sickness, brother, my limbs gave out on me. I mean, I couldn't move. I'm in the deep end of the swimming pool, and I couldn't move. So I'm watching my children play. I'm watching them play, and I'm drowning, and they don't know it. And the only thing I could think to do was to sink to the bottom of the swimming pool. I sunk to the bottom of the swimming pool, and I crawled from the deep end to the shallow end. I stood up. I didn't say anything. I just stood up and walked out of the pool. So I knew, because this got to look like an accident. I knew that if I swam long enough, my body would give up. And it was nothing. If I changed my mind, it wouldn't matter. My body would give up and I would just drown. So what I did was every night I would go out and swim, or I would go out to the pool at night. So it looks like a routine, right? He goes out every night and he gets in the pool. This is just his routine. This is his routine. And then on this particular night, I made, okay, now this is going to be the night that I actually go out here and get in this pool, and I go head on and swim, and then I drown. It looks like an accident. Nothing I can do to stop it. And it's not, because I don't know if you know this, and I read this in the fine print. I mean, I'm playing this stuff out, brother. Most insurance policies don't pay out for suicide. Don't pay it out. And of course, I was sick, so I wouldn't, they weren't going to pay for me dying for something that I had already, right? I didn't want my family to have that struggle, but they would pay for accidental death. So my death was going to be by drowning. And I sat in the pool that night, just looking at the stars, brother, and I was talking to Allah. This is what I'm going to do, Allah, forgive me, that kind of conversation. I closed my eyes, I leaned back and closed my eyes. And what I told you earlier, I seen this picture of my wife seeing me coming out with the children and trying to jump in the water and save me. And she don't know how to swim. But I seen her drowning too. And when I seen that, I said, no, I said, I can't do this, you know, and I got out of the pool. Yeah. Yes, sir. Praise be to God.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for your honesty and transparency, Tremikus. You teaching tonight. I know you're healing a lot of us, and we can't wait to put this on YouTube.
Praise
and
thank you.
Brother Prince Gill says, hold tight to the rope of Allah. Okay, yes, sir. My next question for you, sir, what has been your greatest joy in life?
Part of me wants to say I haven't experienced it yet. But if I were to talk about, to name one particular thing outside of my family, it would be my work with the Phoenix LOC, seeing brothers and sisters who are not Muslims, not Christians, not any of those things, but being all those things, come together and work in unison to fulfill the vision of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which is the establishment of the 9 ministries. That's brought me a lot of joy, brother. I tell it, you know, the LOC is my family. They're my friends. They're my sisters. They're my brothers. They don't all come to the mosque. We don't all believe the same thing, but we do believe that we have the power, the strength, the know-how to change the lives of our people. And we want to be a demonstration of what Black unity looks like. And being able to do that work for the last 8 years has brought me a lot of joy, a lot of joy. I guess seeing it completely come into fruition, the establishment of the 9 ministries would be my greatest joy outside of my family. You know, that would be my greatest joy.
Beautiful. Yes. Praise be to Allah. Excellent. Thank you all for watching. Okay, we have 3 more questions for you, Brother Tremikus. Once again, could you let us know the website and how we can get your book? Let's make sure we all support our brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's grassrootsbookstore.com. The book is Push On Through Struggle. This is the book. It's a picture of it on the website, grassrootsbookstore.com.
Yes, sir. And suppose some people might be driving by Jack in the Box or something like that, and they're actually in Phoenix. Where do we make a right? Where do we make a left? Where do we go? How do we get there?
So listen, 1145 East Washington, the AfriSoul Marketplace is the home of Grassroots Bookstore. If you ever are in Phoenix, you have to come to the AfriSoul Marketplace. You have to come to Grassroots Bookstore, 1145 East Washington. I'll be here. You know, this is where I'm at. And you can meet your family. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So you're saying after we watch the Suns play with Kevin Durant and everyone, we can just after the game just pull right up to the stadium. Got it.
We're right down the street, brother. And it's convenient. We're a few minutes from the airport. We're right down the street from the stadium. We're right in Central Phoenix, downtown Phoenix, right off the light rail. You can catch a train to get to us, all that good stuff. But yeah, 1145 East Washington, Grassroots Bookstore, the only Black-owned bookstore in the state of Arizona.
Yes, beautiful. Sir. Praise be to Allah. Okay, Brother Tremikus, we want to do something heavy, and then we go to something light real quick. But I want to go back to the letter, just because this is, you're groundbreaking. I need this, for you to just help channel Brother Jabril's energy and help us, your understanding for us. The letter said, Hon Elijah Muhammad. So a woman wrote, I want to get the order of it. The sister writes to the messenger saying that she saw him escape the death plot.
Yes. And
when she saw him escape the death plot, then he sees it through her eyes, or how, like break it down for me.
No. And I wish I could have the letter in front of me. No, he couldn't. He confirms to her what she has seen. He confirms it. And
so he already knew.
Oh, he already knew.
Okay. I was making sure. I didn't know if she brought it to him, and that was
no. I mean, excuse my passion, but yeah, the Honorable Elijah, brother, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it goes back, you hear the minister say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to him, brother, if Allah can't save me,
That's right.
that's a sign that he can't save you. So
Yes,
the Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew that there was a death plot against him. He knew that there would be those who would attempt to execute that death plot. And he knew that he would escape that death plot. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we have to remember, is a student of the scripture, both Bible and the Quran.
That's right.
And in the Bible, there's no grave for Elijah.
Allahu Akbar.
He is the fulfillment of that and more.
Yes, sir.
In the scriptures, in the Bible, there is the appearance that Jesus is crucified on the cross, but the stone is rolled away from the grave, and Jesus is gone. He's no longer in the grave, and his disciples see him again. In fact, about it, according to the Bible, when Thomas seen him, he didn't believe it was him. And Jesus, and this is important for the believers, Jesus held his hand out and allowed Thomas to stick his fingers in his wound. And Jesus says to Thomas, after he believed, he said, blessed is he who after seeing believe, but even more blessed is he who has not seen but believes, right? So in the Quran, it says that Allah made it appear as though they had killed the Messiah.
That's right. That's right.
But they killed him not.
Allahu Akbar. Yes, sir.
Now, this is important for the believers because our belief and understanding of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad still being physically alive, not alive in you, not alive in me, is a testament and testimony of not just the power of Allah who came in the persons of Master Farad Muhammad, but it's a testament and a testimony of Allah's ability in some of the most dangerous circumstances that Allah, if we trust him, can save our lives. And it also is a testimony that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is alive in power and guiding the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that he's not a self-guided man. He is a man that is guided from on high. So now, if we are facing an enemy that seems to be all powerful, here you got Kanye. Kanye was a billionaire one hour, and the man made him less than a billionaire the next hour, took all his billions away from him. You and I, we working paycheck to paycheck.
That's right.
That's a powerful enemy.
Yes, sir.
This enemy has been able to kill leaders.
That's right.
At a whim. He's able to say, you at such and such and so coordinate, I'll send my drone and I'll take you out. This is not no lightweight enemy.
That's right.
And the only way we're going to be able to deal with this enemy is if we have backing and a power from on high that is protecting us and guiding us. But not only that, if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive, then it's not a dead teachings that we follow.
Come on.
The teachings are alive, and they still have power to generate new life. I say that because some of us might not believe that. Some of us might believe that nobody will listen, nobody will follow this word, we got all we gonna get, and we're satisfied with that. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is not satisfied with that. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, they're not satisfied with that. Because this is the living teachings. And it still has the power to transform and save lives, even our lives, though we've fallen off the path.
That's right. That's right.
We've fallen off the path. But if we take hold of these teachings, they are ever-flowing wellspring of wisdom. And no matter if the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been gone for the last 48 years, these teachings still have power, like as if he had first said his first word yesterday. It's still power in the word. It's still growing. It's still rotating. It still has life. And if we give our people these teachings and a deeper understanding of these teachings from the guidance of our Minister Louis Farrakhan, it will give life to a dead people. So it's important. It's critical that we understand. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew. He knew. And he's expecting for us to do great work and great things with the teachings that we have. The command is still, Brother Joshua, raise the dead by the thousands.
That's right. That's right.
A dead man can't raise dead people.
That's right.
Only a living man can raise people to life, spiritual life. So we have that. We have that. And we should be secure in that. I thank Allah for Brother Jabril. I thank him for what he has shared with us. You know, Brother Josh, if I can say really quickly, I asked Allah.
Take your time.
I know the minister will speak more on this, but I wanted to know from Allah why he took his servant from us. And I don't know the answer. And I'm praying to Allah that the minister is going to give us an answer to help us. But what I do know is in Minister Jabril's transition is forcing us to look at his work and the body of knowledge that he left us and start to study that work and that body of knowledge more deeply again. The article, every time I would see Brother Jabril, one of the first questions he would ask is, have you read my article in the Final Call newspaper? I don't think it's a coincidence, and I'll leave it at this. I don't think it's a coincidence that his last article that was in the Final Call newspaper was on love. That man loved the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He loved the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he loved the believers. He loved us, brother. And it was a tangible love. It was a real love, you know? And we have to learn to love each other that same way. You know?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now, Brother Tremikus, you teaching, you're on fire. Hope everybody shows love to Brother Tremikus all across the country. All right, so the sister sent, I got the letters. I just want to read it, but I want to make sure that we're referring to the same letter. So she sent like 6 screenshots of everything that's in the book, and we're referring to the letter that you're referring to the letter that the messenger wrote, or the letter that she wrote to the messenger?
Both.
Both.
You would have to, yeah.
Okay, well, that's a lot of homework.
He writes a response, but I think the response only makes sense if you hear the letter she wrote. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. So what this sets up something good. Tremikus can come back. Part 2. Is it possible? Is it Most High Elijah Muhammad still alive with the letters as well as the response? Because I got them, but I want to leave that to you. I want to
I do my best, brother.
Yes, sir. And Brother Tremikus, hold on, here we go. Allah is the best of planners. One moment. Here we go. 2, 3, 4, 5. And thank you all, everyone who is showing love all across the country. And Brother Tremikus, do you have access to your Facebook?
I do.
Yes, sir. If you could just check your messages while I show some love in the comments. Yes, sir. People are saying all praises due to Allah. You're teaching. I'm so glad that Allah intervened in your affairs. Sister Ariana Cole showing the grassroots juice bar. Brother Kiam showing peace. And thank you everyone who's showing love all across the country. Alaikum salam, big brothers with the A. Thank you all very much. And we are getting some, we're going deep today. This is what we call we building with the gods. This is some high science for 5% of the world right now. We really dealing with this is pure revelation as we deal with the teachings of Most High Elijah Muhammad, the revealed word of Allah. This is powerful. So thank you all for continuing to tune in, like, share, subscribe to People's Podcast. We can't wait to put this on YouTube this evening. as we just study the importance of the words of the Most Hon Elijah Muhammad and the breakdown of Brother Minister Jabril Muhammad and his great legacy. But Tremikus, is that in order or is that out of order?
Let me see.
And for everyone who was watching, if you have any guest suggestions, please let us know. You can message me. It was podcast, and you can always message and let us know if you feel that you would be a good guest. Tomorrow we have some more exciting guests as well. I got some exclusive guests coming up this week. I don't want to say anything until everything is locked down, but if everybody just stay tuned, set the notification. This week we will be doing a lot of tributes to our brother Minister Jabril Muhammad. May Allah be pleased, and let's continue to send love and positive energy to his family as well as to the nation, because as they go through what they're going through as a personal relationship with Brother Jabril, we're going through it as a nation, just reflecting on his great work.
Brother, I don't want to interrupt you.
Yes, sir. I'm right here with you.
It looks to be in order, and I'm smiling because I can hear Brother Jabril's voice as I'm reading this letter. I just want to point to believers. All the believers should get the book. The book is The Final Call, store.finalcall.com. I'm talking about it. The Prophet Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive. I cannot stress the importance that Brother Minister Jabril laid around that book. All of us should get that book.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I just want to take the believer's attention to something. And I want you to look in the Final Call newspaper for the interview that Brother Jabril did with Brother Joshua Muhammad, Farrakhan, Joshua Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The son of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because that interview bears witness to what I'm about to read. It says, in the Psalms prophecy, he was taken under a cover of darkness. While the enemies were after him, God made the heavens a dark thickness of clouds. And under cover of this darkness, God came down and picked him up. Mm-hmm. And if the believers would go and read Brother Joshua's interview with Brother Jabril, Brother Joshua Farrakhan, he talks about this thick cloud that came down over the hospital at the time that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was, as the world believes at that time, transitioning. So here's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad writing in a letter. This letter is dated November 25th, 1966. And in the letter, think about this, family. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad is talking about something that Brother Joshua Farrakhan would experience in 1975. So how did he know? How did he know? Except Allah had shown him. Now, Brother Jabril, may Allah be pleased with our brother. He knew. He shared with me, and I believe he shared it in other places. He knew the exact date that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would leave.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I asked him, I said, Brother Jabril, I said, how did you know the exact date? He said, he told me I couldn't tell you, I studied this. And he said, Allah just showed it to me. And he shared it with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yeah, brother. So
but we're on a roll. We back and forth now. Back as you be going. So when he shared it with the messenger, what did the Most Hon Elijah Muhammad say?
He confirmed it.
Okay.
He confirmed he was right. So now think about this now. Here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad knows I'm leaving. He's talking to his minister. His minister sees it, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad confirms it with him. So then now, think about it. So if he confirmed it with him, Brother Jabril would always ask, how would things happen? How would this happen? God is not a spook.
That's right.
So then he had to prepare Brother Jabril for what to do in his absence. Part of that is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now think about this. Think about it. So the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is not something that's a phenomenon that has happened haphazardly. He is part of the plan of Allah for our salvation. Too many have taken our Minister Louis Farrakhan lightly, brother. But he's part of Allah's plan to save his people. This is heavy because if we understand it, Brother Jabril would say, and he said it, and you can find many lectures where he said the same, I'm paraphrasing, you didn't like that, brother, but I have to do it because my memory, the same effort, the same planning that went into choosing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and choosing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan went into choosing each one of us. This is important because if his appearance of death was a plan and his saving from that and Brother Jabril was part of the plan and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was part of the plan, what is the plan for? The plan is not just to exalt one or two men. Their plan is to exalt an entire people. That's the plan.
Crazy.
So we gotta understand this, because if we understand it, we won't discount ourselves. How important we are to the plan of Allah, and the manifestation of Allah's plan comes through you and our submission and our work. That's how the people know who God is.
Come on.
We have to be the active demonstration of that.
Yes, sir.
Not just, looking at Minister Farrakhan and clapping. Mr. Farrakhan's not an entertainer. He's an example. He is the blueprint.
That's right. Of
what Allah intends to make us. We got to go down that path. But part of going down that path is understanding. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you were guilty of. Y'all, Mr. Louis Farrakhan said Allah came to save us. He did not come to punish us. He came to save us. He's a God that wants to save us. Y'all, Mr. Louis Farrakhan said, even when he whips us, his whipping is for us to get in line, not to destroy us. If Allah wanted to destroy us, he ain't got to waste no time. We ain't got to give him no reason. we giving that reason 20 times over. He's a God that wants to save his people. That's important because you will save the world.
Beautiful.
You and I will save the world, Brother Joshua. That is Allah's intention for us. That's not arrogance. In the Bible, Jesus said, and we know who the real Jesus is.
That's right.
He said it's not a sin for a man to equal himself up to God. Yeah, all God's children of the Most High God. What does that mean? It's not for you to get arrogant, for me to get arrogant. It means that if we submit, we have part of the meaning, I believe, from the teachings of the Hon Elijah Muhammad under Minister Farrakhan. Part of the meaning, I believe, is that we are intended to grow up to be perfect reflections of God and his Christ and their word and their intention for our people, that we are to be little saviors of the people. See? So we are important.
That's right.
That's why you can't kill yourself. That's why you can't be lost in the struggle and the grief and the hard time. You can't be lost in those things, because our Creator, our God, our Savior intends to do something with us. And what we're going through, if we had a right mindset, it's designed to make something out of us, to build us up, to take us from stage after stage. But what happens is we get in the middle of the struggle. I get it. I did it, Brother Joshua. And Brother Jabril asked me to do, I just wasn't strong enough. I had to go through something. I had to go through some pain. I had to go through some struggle and get strong enough to do what he asked me to do. And that's to be a strong Muslim and a believer in the face of all opposition. To not flinch, to not bow, to stand on truth, to stand on our law, in love and in unity and in brotherhood, so that we could be better, so that I could be better, so I could help feed the believers. So all praise is due to Allah, brother.
Teacher Tremikus, yes, sir.
Praise is due to Allah.
Excellent. Okay, yes, sir. So we back to the letter. We back to the letter.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. So you will.
I mean, because we need this. Like
It's so
this,
much.
people need to tune in.
So much in this letter. Now, I will say this: the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is referencing the book of Daniel in this letter. And I'm going to read some of this. It says, "Remember, brother, that Daniel said, there are 70 weeks for the term upon thy people. Count 70 weeks. I talked to Brother Jabril about this question. He, in this 70 weeks, he said it was very important for us to understand. I won't share my thoughts because I don't have a full understanding. I think, in fact, one time, I think I shared with him what I thought it was, and he said, wrong. so I won't share, but what I think, I'm just going to share what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote. He said, remember, brother, that Daniel said there are 70 weeks for the term upon thy people. The 69th week is something similar to the attack on the woman in Revelation, and it is hinted in the Quran in symbolic language. And again, Daniel, it says, in the night they came and they took the prey away. And in Isaiah, he makes mention not of death, but of the taking away and escape of the messenger from a death plot against him by the angels. And then he put smile. Then he said, there's a lot yet for you to understand of this prophecy of the 69 weeks. So Brother Jabril stressed the importance of us studying the entire book of Daniel. You should read it. We should read it. We should study it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's something in it for our nation, because we know that with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I don't know how we got on this, brother, but we know that what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad went through is what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is going to go through.
That's right.
So this is not us reading a history lesson.
That's right. That's
this
right.
is us being given history to study so that we can see what's coming in the future and that we pass the test.
Yes, sir.
We have to pass the test, brother. We still have to be faithful. We still have to be strong. We have to be what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been in the absence of his teacher. We have to become what he has been in the absence of his teacher when we have to work in the absence of ours. Very critical and very important. And there are certain things that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Brother Jabril, heard them say this, that many of us won't make it because we won't study. Now, what did I take from the lesson of him sitting me down and making me read a 400+ page book? Study. I learned a lot, in terms of argument and defense, but the biggest lesson was study. Now, most of us don't have 8 hours a day, to sit and to study, but every night we should have a book by the side of our bed. Just to quote Mr. Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, he said you shouldn't go to sleep at night without reading a book.
Beautiful.
But we should read. You should have a book in your bathroom, a book by your bed, a book by the coffee table. Every time you sit down, you should take a chance to read a book. And then in this day and time, they got audio books. You driving down the street.
That's a
We
fact.
should be
That's a fact.
reading. We should be studying constantly. Brother Joshua, I've never seen Brother Jabril not studying.
Mm.
Never. Now some have seen him. Of course, you know, they may have seen him. I think he liked to fight. They would see him in the fight, but I never seen him like that. Every time I seen him, he was reading the book. Every single time I seen him, he was studying.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Now, of course, you know, sometimes he was eating dinner, but you understand what I'm saying with the
Yes, sir.
reading.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Always
Yes, sir.
study.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Brother Tremikus, we right here with you. Okay, all right. Of course, right in the middle of that, waiting for Brother Tremikus to come back on. Perhaps his phone charger as the battery's gone out. Thank you all for staying with us because we're going to get back. And while we were speaking of, we're waiting on Brother Tremikus, I wanted to play a clip for you all as we study. You know, is it possible that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is physically alive through the study of Brother Jabril? Brother Tremikus referenced he referenced a interview that Brother Jabril did with Brother Joshua Farrakhan, and I wanted to make sure that we played the visual of that, Brother Joshua Farrakhan speaking about that on the People's Podcast. So I have that queued up for us so that we can hear what Brother Joshua said he experienced while he was on security for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that day in 1975 as well. So we're going to play that clip as well. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so we're waiting on. There you go. Look at that. Thank y'all for rocking with us. Go ahead, Brother Tremikus. Be right here with you.
There we go. I'm back, brother. I don't know exactly what, but I'm back. I think we were talking about his study.
Yes, sir.
You know, some of us won't make it because we don't study. Now, you know, some of us who may not be Muslim, you may think this don't apply to you. It applies to everybody.
That's right.
You know, we have to be students. We have to be study. We have to learn, and that's what I got from Brother Jabril, to study. So I think that's what I was saying, brother. I kind of lost my point a little bit.
Yes, sir. No, we were you're studying Book of Daniel, and then the importance of Book of Daniel, Brother Jabril is always studying, and then everything went down, but we right back with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's where I was at, brother. I think that's all I had to say on that.
Okay, yes, sir. Now the sisters. Now you read. Okay, so we stopped on the messenger explaining the letter. What did the sister actually see?
Oh, I can't now. I'm on my phone, so I can't.
I can't pull it out. Okay, no problem. No pressure.
Hold on one second. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Because I want to play something for everyone.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir. 1 second. I want to play something for everyone. But yes, sir, Brother Tremikus. So you're saying you can't see it on your phone no more, huh? I mean, because you're on your phone.
No, I'm actually using my phone now, so I would have to leave the Zoom to go to my phone.
Okay, yes, sir. I want to play something for everyone. But we'll come back to that for sure in the future for part 2 with Brother Tremikus. I want to play it. Right now we on this. So I'm going to go ahead and just, People's Podcast, we making progress. So I want to go to right here, 14-minute mark. Hold on. Here we go. 1 second. Here we go. Okay, so yes, sir. So Brother Tremikus, you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yes, sir. I want to play a snippet of the clip of Brother Joshua Farrakhan on People's Podcast talking about what he experienced that day in 1975 when he was on security outside the messenger's door and what took place.
Yes, sir. Ooh, yes, sir. Come on, brother.
Here we go.
That I was on a whole coach with a messenger. I'm like, man, I could have got some of Sultan's guns, because Sultan had all kind of guns. This is Allah's brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we got up on the floor. When we got up on the floor where the messenger was being held in the intensive care unit, there was only one little old brother who was on post, sitting outside the room where the messenger was. And I looked around and I'm saying to myself, this is strange. One old man on post, and then they called me, Olive, and Kamal, a holding post on the messenger of Allah, who has a nation. He has captains and lieutenants, supreme captains. In every city he had FOI.
Yes, sir.
Now, how am I chosen, a little 16-year-old boy who's a bad mother? You know, I took honor, but I had to question that.
Yes, sir.
You know, so there I was, man. We relieved the old brother, and I took post, and I sat in that seat in front of the door where the messenger of Allah was lying in intensive care. And so as we did our shifts, because at the end of the hall there was a lounge, and Olive and Kamal would be sitting in the lounge, and we would take turns getting in that seat.
Yes, sir.
So I
Yes, sir.
went in the room. You know, I had to see the messenger. You know, so I snuck in the room, and I looked, and there were other people in there as well. So I'm looking around and making sure that these people are really sick. So I got me a pen. I'm going to each one of these people, man, and I'm sticking them.
Okay, we're gonna come back for the whole story. I just wanted to, let y'all know y'all can go to the People's Podcast and see Brother Joshua Farrakhan talking about his experience of holding post on the Messenger of Allah as a teenager, the night that he departed. And we're right back to Brother Tremikus. Boom. Go ahead, Brother Tremikus. I'm right back with you.
So that's a powerful testimony. I hope that all the believers are able to get the link, because now the story has to be put together. The story has to be told.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then the witnesses has to be called to the forefront. Now,
that's right.
I'm going to say you could take it or let it alone. You can take it or let it alone. We know from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that after he was convinced that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was still physically alive, and he announced it to the world in 1981.
That's
the
right.
minister said that he lost a lot of friends. He lost a lot of friends. They thought he was trying to make something of himself, some of them, right? And that he wasn't telling the truth. But now we have witnesses to what took place. And whether we understand it or not, there will be witnesses as this same or similar thing takes place with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
That's right. That's right.
But we've already been told that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan will not be dead. That he will be with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has promised him he would be. So now, if our leader, and I say that, our teacher, our guide on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is still alive, and we know it. He told us that. That means we have a duty and a responsibility and a work to do. And we will have no excuse but to continue to carry out his instruction until he returns. Period. And
that's
if
right.
the Christians can still go to church and still sing in the choir,
that's right.
2,000 years later,
that's right.
Waiting for the return of Jesus of 2,000 years ago, then what should we be doing as believers in the modern Jesus? We should be able to wait and work a few years in his absence until his return We shouldn't miss a beat. We shouldn't miss a beat. But if we're not studied, see, when we don't study, we lose the connection.
That's right.
Right? We start, as the scriptures say, leaning onto our own understanding, our own interpretation.
That's right.
And starting our own belief systems that's foreign and does not have life. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's word and teaching has life in it. See, he is the light of the world.
That's right.
That's what he is. And there is no light that outshines his. I'm not speaking theoretically or emotionally.
That's right.
If you listen to the minister, his words, no, in fact about it, just his being. I remember when he was at the funeral, I believe, of Aretha Franklin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The minister not saying nothing. His not saying nothing had more power and garnered more attention than all of those, including the former president of the United States, the former leader of the world. His not saying nothing had more power and more resonance than all of those who spoke that day. He didn't say a word because just his presence,
that's right.
His presence is a bearing of witness. His look, his attitude, his spirit. He wasn't sitting there with a screw face, upset because they won't let me say anything. Please. The minister was humble. The minister clapped, applauded, hugged everyone that said word, congratulated, thanked everyone for what they said and spoke. He didn't show not an ounce of resentment. Even though those of us who were watching could feel now, what is this that we're looking at?
That's right.
It reminds me of when Harry Belafonte, may Allah be pleased with him, on the funeral of Coretta Scott King, when the families were threatened that if Harry said something that the president wouldn't attend. And after Harry had taken care of, in many instances, the King family, they bowed to the will of the powers that be. And they didn't let Harry speak. Was hurt. Mr. Belafonte was hurt. So this is the way that our great ones are treated. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan took that treatment.
Yes, sir.
And what was his response? He responded with love. This man is a supreme example. So then, how should we respond to the mistreatment of our people? How should we respond when we mistreat each other?
Go ahead and see, Tremikus.
If he can respond the way that he can respond on the world stage, ain't nobody looking at you. Then how should we respond? We should respond with the same spirit. See, this is why it's important now, because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he's a product of study. He's a good student. He's a student of his teacher. So then we have to be good students of our teacher and grow to reflect the spirit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the mind of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the way of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, not because we worship the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but because Allah has made him an example of what it would take to save a broken, run-down, self-hating people.
That's right.
What will it take? It's going to take love on a divine level. The
Yes, sir.
Honorable Farrakhan has been the example of love on a divine level. This is what it's going to take to fix our family. This is what it's going to take to fix our community. True love. We should all go and read this article of Brother Jabril titled Freedom, Justice, Inequality, that's in the Final Call newspaper, where he questions the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, or asked the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan the question on the meaning of love.
Beautiful.
Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take our love. It's going to take our unity. It's going to take us overcoming our differences. It's going to take us being able to forgive a brother or sister who's offended you, even if they ain't asked for forgiveness. Even if they haven't asked for forgiveness, we got to still forgive them, and not just forgive them. I say, I forget it. I ain't going to say nothing to them. No. Forgive them and then hug them.
Yes, sir.
Love
Yes, sir.
them.
You teach it.
Help them if they in need. Help them if they struggling in life. Help them with that kind of love, without resentment, without holding in the back of our head every time we say, I got believers that are people around me that may have done something to me. I strive, brother. I'm not perfect, Brother Joshua, but I try not to keep my mind in the past, because everything in the past, according to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is dead. Well, if we alive, we can't live in the past.
Go ahead and teach.
We got to come to present time.
That's right.
And we got to, listen, we got to forgive like Allah forgives us. Because if Allah held us accountable, if God, the creator, whatever name, if he held us accountable for all the wrong that we've done, where would we be? The scripture says he winked his eye at sin. It said he cast our sin in the sea of forgetfulness. I heard
That's
Brother
right.
Jabril say, then why won't you participate with God? Why do you keep reminding yourself of the wrong that you've done? Forgive yourself and then move forward. Move forward. This is the example that we have in front of us.
Go ahead, Tremikus.
This is the man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that inspired so much love in Brother Jabril. He loved the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan with a passion. Brother, I remember once he told us, and Dr. Patina was then, I think others, Brother Jabril was in the hospital bed. He was unconscious. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan came in the room while he was unconscious. And he said, get up, Jabril, we got work to do. And they said, Brother Jabril jumped up in the bed. Because he loved the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And the sound of his brother's voice brought him into consciousness.
Yes,
again, that's the kind of love we got to have for each other. See? That you respond to just the sound of your brother and sister's voice. Sometimes we can hear pain in each other. We don't even respond to it. We got to learn to love.
That's right.
We got to learn to unite.
That's right.
We got to learn to overcome our differences.
Yes, sir.
We got to learn, brother, to move and act like we are people who follow a living God and a living Christ and a living Messiah who's actively working. Now, if God is working and the Christ and the Messiah is working to save the people, then if we don't work to do the same or help them in the work, then we are working against them. How do we look? They want to save the people, but we mad. We angry. We upset. But then we say we follow. The minister said we love him, but we don't love his way.
That's right. That's right.
We don't love his way. We got to learn to love his way. So I don't mean to go on a tangent, brother.
Oh, go ahead.
But man, I'm telling you, brother, the love that we'll see, brother. I believe the minister's gonna lay it out. The love that the brother Minister Jabril showed us in his demonstration. I'll share this. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke to the believers here in Phoenix, and he stood, I think, for 2 hours. And he's talking about how if you stand so long, sometimes your legs would give out. We know the minister is not in the best of health, but we learned later that he stood for 2 hours as he talked about his brother Jabril. He said because he wanted to stand for Brother Jabril like Brother Jabril had stood for him.
Yes,
what
sir.
greater love has any man than he would lay down his life for his friend?
That's
we
right.
can tell when we pass from death into life when we love the brotherhood.
Go ahead and
Love the
teach.
sisterhood. And when you love the brotherhood and the sisterhood, you don't let nobody speak ill or foul of your brother or your sister. You stop them in their tracks.
That's right.
But I'm going to let you speak ill and foul of that which God loves. You may not love them, but God loves them. And it would be wise of us to learn to love each other like Allah loves us.
Woo-hoo. Yes, sir. Tremikus,
Praise be
teacher.
to Allah. Praise be to
Beautiful.
Allah.
Yes, sir. And thank you, people for showing love all across the country. Here we go. I'm going back to the comments. What matter man is this? He's divine, leader, teacher, and God. No doubt Jesus lives. Teach Muhammad. Yes, indeed. And indeed, all praises due to Allah.
All praise be to
And
Allah.
then Sister Minister Aisha from Phoenix is just joining us now. Says, look how far I can love. Thanks, Sister Aisha, for joining finally. And Brother Nelson Raymond says, thank you both for a beautiful and amazing evening. And all right, brother says he loves it. Thank you very much. On that positive note, we want to keep the people on their edge of their seat and let them know that inshallah we'll be back very soon for part 2, and we'll go more deep into the letter. And we want to hear more about I want to hear about your journey, your advice for fathers,
yes, sir.
love, great, being a husband. You have so much we want to talk about with you. But today, man, you were full. We feel we've been, man. This is great. This is great. I don't stay up this late. This is the latest I stay up on the podcast in a long time. We on the Eastern time over here. But I feel fired. Brother. I feel fired up, and I got some stuff to study. And praise be to Allah for everyone who is watching and commenting. And on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we want to thank you Allah for your sacrifices, Brother Tremikus, and the sacrifice of your family. May Allah continue to bless you all. Thank you for surviving and being an example as someone who wrote a book. And we look forward to dive into your book even more on part 2. Shout out to your wife and your children. I look forward to meeting your children. I never met your sons before. I look forward to meeting you in person as well. And
yes, sir.
Wonderful. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off of the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Bless you, brother. Walaikum salam. Thank you,
Thank you all for watching. Boom. There we go.